Hello and welcome everyone for part 4 of SwiftUI from scratch. Today you learn about how to use a ForEach loop to dynamically create views, then you will master a list view, and finally understand the functionality of a scroll view. If you're enjoying the content, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy! First, let's try to understand the usage of for loops. So far, we've only had small amounts of views inside our content view. Now imagine you're scrolling your Facebook post or Amazon products on your phone. There are large amounts of posts being dynamically rendered on your screen, which in SwiftUI would be hundreds or even thousands of individual views. For loops solve this problem for us. Let's try making 30 text views using a loop. Let's try using the for each loop inside our content view. So you will simply write for each, and inside the braces we need to specify a thing called a range, which basically tells us how many view elements we want to render. So a range starts with integer numbers, so we'll go from 0 to less than 30 because we want to render 30 views. This range is basically 0 to 29, and then you will use the curly braces and go I in, and the I refers to the every single number inside the range, so I is 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way to 29. And after that we'll use a basic text view that is saying test, for example. In the preview on the right side you can see that a lot of previews are being shown. If you scroll all the way down, you can read here now that the maximum number of previews per preview provider is 15. So it's only showing 15 out of 30 previews. To fix this, we need to use some kind of a stack. So we will go and left click command on the for each and embed it in a VStack. Now you can see that we're having the text of test being rendered 30 times on our screen. A very useful thing is that we can now use the I variable each iteration inside the loop. So for example, instead of the test right here, I can say that this is row number, and now put the I variable right here. In the preview you can see that the numbers are actually from 0 to 29, which are in total 30 views. You can also rename this variable as you wish, so you can go like item and also say item right here, and nothing will change in the preview. And what you can actually do now is go item plus 1 each time, so this makes more sense that we go from row number 1 all the way to row number 30. For the majority of the cases in practice, you will not know what the maximum of the range will be in advance. So we use some kind of a variable for it. Up here I've introduced an array of strings called devices. I'm not going to cover how arrays work inside this video. And for this we can use devices dot count instead of 30 here. As you can see, we get 5 elements rendered on our screen because we have 5 strings inside of the array. And again, items here are numbers from 0 to 4 in this case, because it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we're saying that we're getting a text with a row number of the index plus 1. A more useful thing here to do would be to go inside the array and use the text view to render each string of the array separately. For this, we're going to delete all of this and simply access the devices array and use the index each time. This will print out the individual strings of the array using the ForEach loop. This practice is only useful if you actually care about the indices of the elements inside of your array. If not, and this is probably the most used way to do this, is to go for each element inside of the devices array, use every single device in, but however we're going to get an error here. Let's look at the error. In the ForEach, that string, which is every single element of our array, has to conform to the identifiable protocol, meaning that the ForEach loop has to know a specific identifier for each of the elements of the array to make it unique for future actions. We can solve this by adding one more parameter here. Let's do id is equal to \self. In this case, SwiftUI is smart enough to know that every single element of this array is different and unique, so you can use the self keyword here and SwiftUI will figure this out for you. After that, we can use our text view and use the every single device we got inside the array. This time, this device variable is pointing to the actual value of the elements inside of the array. So in the first iteration, the device is equal to the desktop computer, in the second one to the game controller, and so on and so on. So here in the text view, we can simply say device, which are the strings of the array, and we get the same result. Now it is a good time to introduce another pre-built view inside of SwiftUI, which is called a list. Let's just simply use this and we can explain later. So for this, we will embed the ForEach loop inside of a list. So you will write list here, use the curly braces, and put the ForEach inside of the list. As you can see now, our texts are way more organized right now, and also if you hit the live preview button right here, you can see that the view is scrollable now. That is one of the features of a list inside of SwiftUI. Now that we've introduced the list view, the VStack is not needed anymore. So we can delete this. And you can see if you hit the resume on your preview that nothing changes. One quick tip for re-indenting your code: if you see that you have some spaces that are not wanted after you've erased something or added something, a good thing to do is go Command A to select the whole file and then hit Control I, and the code will re-indent. Let's now make a custom view structure for each row of the list. The row will include the string right here and also an icon. For this we will be using SF symbols again, and in case you don't know what an SF symbol is, check out the episode number 3. And as you can see on the right side, I have the app San Fran symbols open, and you can see that the strings are actually the names of the icons inside the SF symbols as well. So now let's go ahead and make our structure. So we'll go struct list row, which is a view. We'll say that we need our body, and what we will do is to have a variable for the text. So let's go let text be a string, and the row will be an H stack, so the elements inside it will be aligned horizontally, and we'll simply say that we want our text, and on the right side we use our SF symbols. So we'll go image with the system name, and this is the text as well. Now what you can do is, instead of calling this text view inside of the ForEach loop, we'll call our list row view. This needs a parameter, and the parameter is the device here in the loop as before. So we'll go device, and if we hit our resume, you can see that you get your string. This is the text, and also the icon with the name that matches the actual string. One more thing to mention before we move on is that when you're using a list view, you don't actually need a ForEach loop to get this result. What you can do here is to copy this bracket right here and put it after the list right here, and we can completely erase the ForEach loop here, and also here say device in, and you can see that we get the exact same result. There are times where you want to use a ForEach inside of a list. There are times where you want to have the loop only inside the list, but there are also times where you don't want to use the list view at all and just simply use the ForEach loop. This really depends on the use case. You will learn about it as you go on. As we've mentioned earlier, when using a list view, the content inside it automatically becomes scrollable. So again, if you hit the live preview, you can see that you can scroll the view anywhere on the screen you want. But let's say we don't want to use a list and go back to our ForEach loop, and as we know, we need to use some kind of a stack for it to work properly, and we don't get the same exact result as with the view. Let's now say that we want to be able to scroll through this content even though we're not using a list. The way to do it is to use the ScrollView as mentioned. So you will type ScrollView and use the curly braces again, and put the whole VStack inside the ScrollView with the ForEach loop. As you can see, the view changed a little bit and the content got pushed towards the top. But now if you hit the live preview, you can see that you can scroll through it. The problem now is that if you try to scroll through it using the sides here, nothing is happening. That is because of the frame of the actual VStack, which is highlighted in blue right here. Ideally, we would like the scroll view to work in the full width of the screen. However, by default, the VStack takes only the place that the content needs. So the widest element, which is the first one in the VStack, is determining the width of the VStack. But as we know already from the earlier episodes, you can change the views frame by using the frame modifier. So what we want to do is for our VStack to take the full width of the screen. So we will use .frame as the modifier here and say that the width, well, the problem is now that you don't know what number you should put in here, because this is, for example, iPhone 12, but of course this number will be different for each device. So how would I set this width to always be a max width of a given device? Well, we're going to introduce a class that is called UI Screen. The UI Screen class inside of Swift holds a lot of information about the current screen that the person is using inside of your application. If you're interested about learning more about this class, you can check out the official developer documentation made by Apple. But for now, we're going to go back to our code and we can access properties inside the UI Screen class which determine the width of the device. So for us, let's have a variable which will be the max width of our screen, and is going to be equal to UI screen dot main dot bounds dot width. After that, in frame, we can put the max width variable right here and hit resume preview, and now you can see that the stack is full width. If we hit the live preview button right now, you can see that the scroll view works in the middle but also on the edges of the screen. In your future projects, you will be using the max width and the max height of the screen a lot. For getting the max height of the screen, it is almost identical, so we will name this max height, and it is uiscreen.main.bounds, but height here. Both of these return some kind of a number. So let's say I divide the max width by 2 right here. You can see that the frame of the stack is the max width of the device divided by 2. That is one way that you can use the width and the height of a device, but don't worry, we'll take a deeper look at this in future episodes. The last thing I'll show you is the scroll direction. So the scroll view by default has a vertical scroll direction, meaning that you can scroll from the top to the bottom of your screen, but you can also use a horizontal one. For this, we need to make some changes. So first of all, we will erase the text in our list row view, so we will only have the icon, and we will also make this much bigger. So let's use the font system size and set it to 100, so it will be really big. Now we will get rid of the frame modifier right here, and for the scroll view, inside the braces you will simply say horizontal. And another thing you need to do while using a horizontal scroll view is to use an HTag before the ForEach loop. So if you hit live preview now, you can see that we can scroll horizontally. However, you might see the scroll indicator appear on your screen while scrolling now. To get rid of this, you can simply say shows indicators and set this to false. After this, you won't be able to see the scroll indicator on your screen anymore. Alright everyone, this has been an episode 4 of SwiftUI from scratch. where you've learned how to use a for each loop, a list view, and a scroll view. For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next time.